There's no privacy in public. And this is what it could mean when there's XYZ amount of people thinking that when you work for a state, when you're a governor, when you're an administrator of a county, that you don't have to answer back to the emails for civilians. This is what I was saying when I was speaking over my left shoulder last year. For the third time, didn't get a response from my county's administrator because he didn't want a liability. And just as the sun sets, they're like, what did Annie say? The orphan. The sun will come out tomorrow. More importantly, Oliver Twist, the other orphan. We put Annie and Oliver Twist together. What were these two orphans getting at? What was their message that was so hard to push that they had to write a script for orphans to say it? That no matter how much money Daddy Warbucks had, it wasn't enough for Annie. She was still going on her way. And Oliver Twist, with what he had, one line that would change all lines of dialogue for what is known as an underdog forever. Can I have some more? You know. What are we talking about here, folks? What were they inferencing? Call your county executive, your county administrator. They might have an input, or they might put your email invoice in a spam folder and not talk back to you, kind of like what happened to me. Of a civilian, me, clean record, on record, with having an opposal to his proposition of his stance, his mission statement. This is what these county administrators have to go to a board and a live stream on the internet and say what they think should occur for the land that they live on and the people who live in it. If you can put two and two together, you can see why I'm kind of at odds with myself. But I'm not beside myself. Heisenberg was a scientist. Defines spin, all particles everywhere, the material we make up of, a material sense, and is everything. A binary is an email sent through binary code through the airwaves, and this is what needs to get touched upon, I guess. Sum 41 just dropped the hit, their last of, several explaining airwaves. The Ramones, they explain the airwaves. We can go on and on explaining how important binary is between what's protocol and quote-unquote policy. But when the rubber meets the road, when there's boots on the ground and there's grassroots and all these things, it's in real time. It's what we would like to describe as an accomplishment in humanity by looking around and reading what we have done. That is very abstract, and that is why these county administrators in every state, in every county, gets away every time with their mission statement that they go in front of a board of elected officials. Who the hell knows? I never voted for a board of elected officials, but they present to them what they think is in the best state of mind for their county. And this being ignored should be no different than what is known as minutia. Archaeologists all around the world, they're not saying where or what is in these things that they can't describe. I'm going to give 3 examples, rapid fire, and all of these things rapid fire. hey, how you doing, is but examples of land where nothing has a definitive answer for, and yet is in the jurisdiction of a country where they cannot say what the hell it came from, because they want to save face and not say that the tools of humanity could produce something equivalent, because they can't. Side note before these examples is how much so the interplay of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle and this other guy, if you couple them in a matrix, defines spins of particles on everything. This is so like left, right, center, up, down. That's the point. Spins are up and down. And in particles everywhere, that's the jurisdiction. Luckily, all the cards are not in the hands of these leaders who won't send an email back explaining what the hell is a definitive property of their mission statement. That should be a hypothesis. It took me, when I'm writing a paper or something in school when I was a kid, it would take like a minute to come up with a hypothesis. I just did that in like 2 minutes on camera with everyone staring at me walking with my arm out on camera. I'd like to give myself a round of applause. Great hypothesis, the world facing what exactly cannot be definitive, and yet the leaderships are culminating their positions by saying we don't know, and making all archaeologists under them. What is civil workers? They get paid by the state, they get paid by the country and their countries to keep a tight lip on what cannot be explained. Most recently, we have 3D scanners, we have radiation that permeates the ground. We saw underground in Egypt in these pyramids that there's these giant 100-foot tunnels vertically, these asymptotes. When I talk about verticality, that's an asymptote, it's straight up. These giant holes that are straight up underneath these pyramids, underneath 400 feet of rock. And they're intricately woven. We can see that there's definitely stuff under them. There's complexes, that of which, can't be explained. In that time, you would need precision of AI with a, dare I say, this is what they're trying to do. Culminate. I say AI only as to explain it as simply what a binary typing of a computer. If you enter it in, you can type in binary in a computer if you memorize enough zeros and ones to explain what any click of a button is on a computer. So AI could do that, in a breeze, because it reads binary as if it is breath being in and out of your lungs. It just does it with a snap of the fingers, because it's all electromagnetic wave functions, which is why I mentioned Heisenberg earlier. If we can culminate that in matrix, we can put our thumb on something, our finger on something, to put our thumb somewhere else. And I'm not saying bullhorn any local representatives, but if we crack a case wide open, why the hell not? These archaeologists aren't. Binary, the precision underneath these pyramids of Giza, the eighth wonder of the world, are these things we just found that we have strong enough radiation to permeate the ground. It reads like these very intricate complexes underneath these pyramids, underneath a rock, underneath these giant vertical tunnels that are hundreds of feet deep. No man back then could make that. We didn't have machines back then in the pyramids. The pyramids in Egypt, they're not saying how it happened. We can't research down there. We just saw it with our radiation. Because if you didn't know, there's satellites everywhere reading everything all the time. So with what AI could provide, this is one of the tools that isn't quite there yet, but it's only there with these two other components to explain any of these measures, because they're superhuman, astronomical. I'm not saying they're aliens. There's probably civilizations that got washed away who figured out how to do this without machines, or they had their own machines. Giant question mark with how that complex underneath the pyramids occurred. Second example, in the Andes Mountains is a guy in the Middle Eastern. He has a square beard. That's how they identify square beards, Middle Easterns back then and during that time era. In the Andes Mountains, along with the faces of all these other races of the entire world, which got sculpted inside this giant temple, which has these giant blocks that are cut so fine with hundreds of tons, where you can't do that with copper tools. We thought in the history of the earth, the world, that they back then, which predates, we can see things that predates with like carbon carbon dating, how old these things are. And in the Andes Mountains, this temple is carbon dated before their civilization in the Andes Mountains came into fruition with a actual civilization, meaning kept on record with scrolls or what have you. And they don't know how this temple got that information of people around the world, or this guy, or how they got these 100-ton blocks cut so finely. Third example, in Japan, underneath the water, this was above water before the glaciers hit, because glaciers hit and they melt and they make all the earth flooded. So right off the coast of Japan, it got flooded from glaciers. And there's still this temple with these cut steps, which water, it makes round because there's chaos all around it, round stuff. Look up what turbulence is. Waves have that on top and it carries to the water below, and it makes an erratic entropy, which is chaotic, making things round. That's why shells are round. But these undeniable steps, which are from a temple right off the coast of Japan, the Japanese culture don't know how that came there. They don't know who put it there, what the hell, why is it under water before the glaciers. They have no record on record. So these are three examples of places on land masses that are undisputed and yet still there. And so I'm only using this as a caveat to an email to a person, a voicemail from calling on a phone. Shout out Alexander Graham, creating the telephone binary in Fredonia, Wisconsin. Side note, I'm in Wisconsin. There's a payphone, one of the last payphones, and it's operational near McDonald's and a gas station, but it still works. You know, when there's the people complaining they got to carry a cell phone around everywhere and it's radiating their gonads or their what have you. Probably is. And, you know, that's super controversial, but I only said that because Trump allowed executive order for me not to be banned for saying something like that, which is plausible, and there's studies out there that says actually is. Or do we have to carry cell phones around everywhere? Because they got rid of their payphones. We got rid of our payphones, and so we have to carry around cell phones. By default, don't go into a shop and ask to use their phone. They'll get annoyed with you after 4 or 5 times. That fact alone on land masses is a giant culmination of, you know, what is known as you have no choice because it's already been made for you. So don't complain you have to carry your phone around because there's already pay phones that have been taken out. You have no other option. To soft land all of this is when there's this super abstract shapeshifter in Mortal Kombat. It's like a T-100 Terminator or Shang Tsung shapeshifting versus a person who has different attributes. They're not the same. One's mental and the other's physical. Saying the two are to the T of what modern technology that doesn't exist yet, having a data center with a nuclear reactor charging it to have AI supercharge all these definitive angles which you could make in a tunnel under a pyramid is super high-tech, superhuman, but we don't know how to execute that like without having that magnitude. So when there's things around us that do exuberate that are like undescribable, you want to scratch your head and say why. You want to scratch your head.